This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Reverend, once again, we turn to someone who has insights that are really incomparable. And I'm referring to the 55th governor of the state of New York, the Honorable David A. Paterson. So always great to have you with us, Governor.
Good morning, gentlemen.
And anything new in politics these days? Anything happening that we should know about? Anything new in New York City? Just another quiet week?
It's kind of like a dry period. Nothing's going on. Everybody's watching the Mets. You know, we'll wait and see what goes on later on.
So, Governor, how would you describe the present climate?
I think the present climate is quite turbulent. The mayor has been indicted by the federal government. The case is being tried in the Southern District. The Southern District has almost a 90% conviction rate. So this is not a place that you want to be. However, when you have an accused individual, Mayor Adams, who does have significant legal support, and then has, some support of people who've always supported him, this will not be quite as easy as the usual Southern District case. And adding to that is that the governor of New York does have the power to suspend the mayor for 30 days and give him and his legal team the opportunity to prove to her that he can govern effectively, or at that time, she could remove the governor. So we have that acting here. And we've seen perhaps an example of it this week where the superintendent of education, the chancellor, Banks, had stepped down the week before and said he would be staying for 3 months while his successor was getting used to the job. And then on Thursday, he was ceremoniously dismissed and says that he was blindsided. And I can understand his feelings, but the fact is that the governor is performing in a little different way than I thought she would. I thought she would just issue a stern warning and then just, leave it alone. It would be a quagmire for her to jump straight into. But I think what she is doing is monitoring the mayor, which is her right now. And what she's actually doing is telling the mayor to clean house of anybody who's involved in the investigation, which is a admonition that a lot of us have been feeling for a period of time. He just continues. It's great to be loyal, but he continues to be that way. And now he's in a situation where it almost appears from the outside that the governor is managing the city, because there are now 2 personnel changes that many had called for previously, and now you're going to have a situation where the mayor is not going to look as strong and in command as he has before.
So, Governor, let me ask you a question. So, to what degree do we even entertain the innocence of those around him who are being toppled as pawns for a greater purpose? I mean, when we look at banks, just because they're being investigated, their houses are being raided, their phones confiscated, do we assume their guilt? Or do we ask, well, who are they really after? And are these individuals being squeezed in order to get to someone else? How do we understand this, Governor?
Well, it's consistent with many criminal investigations. You start with the lower fruit, the people that don't have the resources to be lawyered up the way the mayor is. They are often unfamiliar with the process. So, for instance, when the people raided the homes, though they had a subpoena, the occupant still has a right to call their lawyer and bring them down. And from the, just the shock of someone knocking on your door at 7 o'clock in the morning and demanding to search your house, many people will tell the truth and give the information that they know. I wouldn't presume guilt about many of these people, but we haven't really heard why the government raided their homes yet. So it's a situation that we'll probably learn as time goes on.
Governor, you talk about presumed guilt. Do we not live in a time when, rather than that presumption of innocence, there's a presumption of guilt? In that court of public opinion, people have already made up their minds, or they're leaning in a certain direction. That we speak of, the presumption of innocence, but we don't really maintain it.
Well, this is why having a program with two outstanding clergymen is so important, because I think that is one of the real sad circumstances that have arisen from this source. How do you, as an elected official, and I'm talking about not the city council members, I'll exclude them, but these state senators, these Congress members, demand that the mayor resign when you have no idea what charges have been laid against them, and you are acting on what you read in the newspaper, meaning that you're not even doing your job. You're responding to the newspaper, not your inner feeling about the presumption of innocence of the Constitution. And some of these people themselves, there's one who called for my resignation in 2010 when I wasn't even indicted, then wound up on trial. His treasurer went to prison, and somehow he didn't. And then he called for Mayor Adams to resign. And I won't give his name, but his initials are John Liu.
Wow.
And so I'm just saying that it is really the height of self-serving activity at a difficult time, where you're making a situation that's already dire worse by your uninformed commentary, leading me to my continued feeling that the only thing worse than ignorance is ignorance with enthusiasm.
By the way, Rev, according to religious tradition, a person is given that presumption of innocence. A person is entitled to a day in court. So, I know it's not the courtroom, it's outside, but still, I think we need to look seriously at the comments that we make, because what you're doing is, first of all, you're denigrating a person, even when you're acquitted, there are those who still say, well, you got away with it, you're guilty. But from a religious standpoint, you are entitled to being innocent and must be proven guilty.
But we live in a world where everyone has an opinion, and now we have a platform for everyone to express that opinion. And it creates such confusion, I think, as to what the facts are. Critical thinking begins with, well, what are the facts? What really happened? Who really said what they said? And then we begin to analyze the information. But we form judgments thinking that we've got all the facts. And unfortunately, that's not true. Also, Governor, please respond to this as well. The power of the court of public opinion has increased dramatically over the last 2 decades, especially with the introduction of social media. Is it true that, any process is going to try to engage that court of public opinion as much as possible to win their case?
Well, it forces the accused to start discussing their own case just in an attempt to defend themselves. Because if not, there's a presumption that lasts longer than the trial is going to last. So, for instance, there was I think he was Secretary of the Interior. His name was Ray Donovan. And if I'm right, he served in the Reagan
Secretary of Labor or whatever.
Yeah. And he was put on trial in a federal case in the Bronx. He was acquitted. And when he was acquitted, he walked up to the district attorney because there was a lot of publicity. You know, he was a presidential appointee and the whole thing. He walked up to the prosecutor and he said, "Where do I go to get my reputation back?"
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, let's just assume for the moment that Mayor Adams is acquitted or the charges are dropped. The fact that he was accused and all the publicity with it will stay with him probably for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
The first sentence of every article about him is going to say he was accused. They won't say he was acquitted because that's not exciting enough for the news media. And I think it's outrageous. I mean, I think it's really unfair. And the reason I picked Ray Donovan's situation is because he was a Republican. He was a conservative. I didn't vote for the president that appointed him, but I respect that he was a citizen that had his right to a day in court, and that when he was acquitted, my view is he's now innocent.
Yeah. And there's no penalty for newspapers that slant the information or misquote the facts. It's very hard to. What do they say? You can't argue with someone who buys ink by the barrel. You're going to lose that argument each time. How do you manage the city? How do you manage your position with that heaviness on you, Governor? How does one carry out day-to-day responsibilities in a constructive way?
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
Since 1981, Unbound has connected people like you with families worldwide on their self-directed paths out of poverty. A brighter future is possible for these families when we all walk together. Sponsor a child today, and you'll help a family take the first steps on their path. Change their future in just one click. Start walking with your new friend today at unbound.org/walk.
Well, I was put in a position of having to do that back in 2010. And
what were the facts? What were the facts? Was it about the tickets?
The facts were that I went to a Yankees game and I hadn't paid for the tickets.
Yeah. See, if you went to a Mets game, that wouldn't have happened, Governor.
No. That's why they lowered the penalty.
So you went to a Yankees game, you hadn't paid for the ticket. That was the big issue?
Right. And they asked me, was I intending to pay for the tickets? And I was, but they didn't accept that. But during that particular time, the investigators learned that I had mentioned a few times that I was going to pay for the tickets, and that's what cleared me. So, but during that particular time, it was very difficult. You get up in the morning and you feel as if you've already been through a day's work and you haven't even had breakfast because of the pressure that's on you And then, once you become a target, anybody has something to say about you.
Right.
And it was the woman who prosecuted the case against the 5 young men who were accused of raping and severely beating a woman in Central Park. She commented on my situation, and really, she should have paid more attention to her own situation, because if they did the due diligence on that case, they would have learned that one of the young men that was accused was actually not in the park at that particular time, and the DNA of an individual who was already imprisoned and had a kind of a religious confession ended the case and freed the young men who had already served about 10 or 12 years. But but my point about all of this is people who are not even have any idea of what cases are about suddenly start talking in the media. And if their statements are controversial enough, they'll all get printed.
Right. And they feel this need to weigh in. But it's a difficult thing in reality, whether you're guilty or innocent. It's a difficult thing to be in a position that the mayor of New York City is in, having to prove his innocence while running the city. And for how long? I mean, they're not giving a trial date or anything like that. And once they do, we don't know how long that trial is going to take. So maybe we're talking 9 months, having to run the city while under the cloud of this, not only potential trial, but ongoing investigation, because they claim there are new charges coming. Is that realistic, Governor, that you can do both?
Well, I did it for 10 months, 308 days. And then finally, the investigation held that I hadn't done anything wrong. What I would say is it was easier for me because when you're governor, most of the time you're in Albany. So you're outside of that huge media cycle that exists in New York City. With the mayor, save the president, is probably the best known and most interested, public figure. So the media wasn't as strong as it was for Mayor Adams, where, you see people in front of the mansion. He takes a motorcade to an event. Somehow somebody finds out about it. They have a protest going on there, that kind of thing. That didn't happen to me. And so I think inevitably that the charges against me were so ridiculous that I'm one of the fortunate ones who, by the 2 or 3 years after it happened, people laughed about it. And John Catsimatidis' famous quote, they said he didn't pay for Yankees tickets, but he couldn't see the game. So
he didn't inhale. He didn't inhale. That's what happened.
Exactly. Yeah. So that kind of, it worked its way free and happily for me. But I think in the case of Mayor Adams, he is in the middle of this like international coverage. They're talking about what happened to him in India. They're talking about it on the BBC, and they had some pretty funny episodes on Saturday Night Live. I'm not unfamiliar with that either. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is, it's just a program like this and the conversation we're having. If a whole lot more people would just stop and think about what's actually going on, I think they would be a lot more sensitive to some of the people involved, because they're human beings, just like we are. Some of them are guilty, and I think that the feds will sort out who they are and convict them. Some of them, I assume, are not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope that the feds don't go too far to prove guilt, even when they start to see that the case may not be as strong as they think it is.
You know, when I get called by reporters about this, as I'm sure, Rev, you do. And I would say the following. I will always be grateful to the mayor for his solidarity with the Jewish people during some of the most difficult times in our history. The mayor has stood with us. And the mayor is entitled to that due process as anyone else is. And people who are already convicting him without knowing all the facts should be ashamed of themselves. They're guilty of really, they're ruining someone's reputation. And
Let me tell you something, Rabbi. Yeah. The mayor has stood up for the Jewish community. He stood up for Israel's right to defend itself.
Mm-hmm.
He's stood up for Israel's right to exist, which now apparently seems to be a controversial issue.
Which many others didn't.
Yes, and he does it in places where what he says is unpopular.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is I have been with him when people started this stuff up, and the two of us are looking at each other like, I wish we could just, beam ourselves up back to the ship and not listen to these people who are ignorant, they're anti-Semitic, they are angry about something, and are taking it out on a group of people whose reputation is that they have always wanted to help others. And at a time when they need the help, it is shocking to me that there is such a response that isn't even near what it should be to try to make life a little easier for our neighbors who happen to be Jewish, not only living in New York City, but in this entire country.
Amen.
You know, Governor, it's interesting that you put the notoriety of the office of mayor of New York City on par with the president of the United States. I was in Jakarta, Indonesia, when the news broke that he was indicted, and it was coming up on all of the Indonesian news feed while I was there. So it's not like I missed a beat.
Wow. Reverend, I got a question. Did you get an upgrade on your flight to Indonesia?
I refuse to answer on the grounds that it may tend to incriminate me.
By the way, Governor, you heard what he said when the news began to break. The Rev left the country. I mean, is there a nexus there? That's what I want to know. The timing. What did you know and when did you know it, Rev?
That's the fear. But you know what, Rabbi, you and I were talking about this off the air. And that is that, what happens when you become an elected official, how you're treated, what you have to go through and deal with. Really, it makes those who are really qualified to lead have first, second, and third thoughts about entering that arena, because you have to anticipate, as part of being an elected official, the possibility that you're going to be investigated, that you're going to be connected to something.
I've had this conversation with my son many times, and he says to me, who in his right mind would consider running for public office today? Look how you get tarnished. Look how you get scrutinized. It is really going to deter people who are talented from going into that public arena. Why should they? They can do public service on a voluntary basis and pursue a profession. Governor?
I think more and more people are feeling that way. And I think that there are other opportunities and other careers that are a whole lot more profitable and also a lot easier to embark on, as opposed to people who go into public service. And what it's also doing is it's lowering the expectation of the people who do go into public service, because in a different world, they may not really be the best people to be serving. So the caliber of people running for office now may be diminished because the people who normally would have run. I mean, when you think about the people who were, major figures in the 80s and the 90s, just, right around New York, yeah, they held these public offices, but they were also in law firms. One of them was a medical doctor. I mean, these were the outstanding leaders of their neighborhood who were encouraged by others to run for office and try to improve the quality of life in the neighborhood. But now it's kind of, you know, and you can tell by some of the things that they say and some of the things that they do. And it's, you know, it's just very unfortunate to see this happening the way it is. And I know if, you know, people tell me you should come back and, you know, I play along, I don't think I want to do that.
By the way, this will bring a number of people out of the woodwork who you didn't think were considering the position, right? All of a sudden, you hear names being thrown out that you didn't think would ever want the position.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to this particular individual, but I've heard a lot about the Attorney General, Tish James. Now, I do remember, you know, when we were younger, she was a counsel to one of the assembly members, and she knew a woman who worked for me. And, you know, so we would have dinner together and that kind of thing. I always got that she was interested in becoming mayor, that she was interested in becoming mayor even, you know, when she was public advocate. But this opportunity to run for Attorney General, and of course being a licensed attorney, she was able to run for that office. I don't think she would want to leave there unless the opportunity to become governor is there. That's just me commenting on it. I haven't talked to her, but yeah, a lot of names of people have come up, and we're sort of pushing the envelope. But what we really need right now is to let the prosecutors do their job and let the mayor defend himself, and then hopefully we will accept the final judgment and move on.
Yeah, but isn't it telling about our society when a situation like this comes up and the two words are resign and replace so quickly, so immediately?
Yeah.
And it takes over our psyche.
Oh, as soon as I heard the indictment came out, I thought, now let's see how many of these so-called public servants will get up and call for the mayor to resign, rather than getting up and say, we understand the situation. We implore the mayor to think about whether or not he can run the city while he's facing these charges or not. We think that that's a very difficult job, and maybe he should consider whether or not he wants to do it. However, let's wait and see what the resolution of this trial is. That's what they could have said, which would have sounded mature and would have sounded fair, as opposed to jumping up and down and drawing attention to who they are.
And if they were indicted, they would want that kind of, you know, statement made about them. But when it happens to someone else, suddenly they take a different stance. Governor, I want to thank you. Wait, you're about to get rid of him? What's the story? Well, I wouldn't use that phrase.
I've got more questions here.
All right, you know what? I just got
the debate.
Wait a second. I got the sign from Kevin Drosch, who's producing this program, that we can continue for a few more moments.
Keep it rolling.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for granting us the pardon. I hate to use that.
Now, Governor, now you know who really has the power. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know where the power is. It's not always in the organizational chart.
Right.
You know that, right? Very quickly, Governor, the VP debate. Okay, we didn't get a chance to have this conversation with you. What were your thoughts on the vice presidential debate?
And what was Governor Walz writing?
Well,
Just nonstop writing. What was that?
I really don't know. I guess it was notes for what he wanted to say in response. But what I would say is, and this will hopefully end things in a positive way, I was proud of both of those gentlemen for the way they treated each other, the way they presented the issues. They went at each other big time on the abortion issue, but it didn't become personal. When on the issue of guns, when Walz said that his 17-year-old son had witnessed a crime, and then the Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance told him he was really sorry to hear that, and God bless his son. I mean,
there were times they said they agreed with each other.
There were that they agreed with each other more so, and yet it was amazing because even at WABC, there's certain people, no matter what gets said, they're going to be critical. No matter what.
What are their names, Governor? Go ahead. Come on.
Oh, we can start with Dominic Carter.
Oh, no.
All you have to do is mention any Democrat running for anything, and he has something nasty to say about that.
Well, Governor, we hope you've enjoyed your time at WABC. It's been great having you.
Yeah, right. The last show.
No, but I really, I was talking
agree with you.
I was talking to the Rev after the debate, and I said to him, and we both spoke about that for America, it was a necessary moment to see two people who could argue and then extend a hand to each other, who could speak to each other in a respectful fashion, even though they disagreed vehemently on some of the issues. We need to see more of that, not less of that.
Absolutely. The vice presidential debate was presidential because it showed a level of respect, dignity, civility that we have not seen at this particular level. It reminds us of what things should be like, even though we have points of disagreement. There is empathy. There is shared values. I will tell you, I loved it. And of course, it's all how the debate, who won, depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah. There were two human beings. There were two human beings there on stage, not one. And you dehumanize the other in some of these debates, not here. There was that real human factor that was so refreshing and reassuring in this country.
If I was
talk policy,
the debate just on policy, I think I would have given the edge to J.D. Vance. I thought that he laid out his positions well. He got caught on the issue of, because he can't say that President Trump should accept the results of the last election. So I don't want to get on his case for that. You knew that when he came in there. But the last time I'd seen anything like that was in 1990, I want to say, I guess it was 1992, when Al Gore ran against George W. Bush. And during the debate, they said something about children. And one of them asked the other, do your children do something or other? And he says, well, I can't. We'll have to talk about that after the show. And they both started laughing. And that's the last time I think I saw civility in a debate anywhere.
Yeah. Well, civility is a rare commodity. Governor, before I let you go, I want to thank you. When I tell the Rev, we're going to have Governor Paterson, he says, wow, he's someone who, whenever he's with us, always has something to say that we haven't heard before. And you are remarkable,
fresh perspective,
right? You're remarkable.
Yep.
And I just want to say this back to the mayor again. I will always stand with him because he stood with us. A friend is the one who walks in when others walk out. We've seen many people walk out in terms of the Jewish community. He walked in and he stayed in. And we wish him, the strength, support to get through this. And hopefully there'll be a positive result. But we shouldn't be pointing that accusatory, guilty finger at him until all the facts are weighed and all the judgment has been made.
And may I respond to that by saying innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
And everyone deserves their day in court.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Governor David Paterson. Yeah. Thank you for being on the program.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.